Why don't I call the meeting to order?
10:01.
10:01. Present Bill McGowan, Wayne Sawchuk, Pierce, Lisa McGonigal, Dan Coughlin. It looks like the 27th would be our next meeting. Does that look good for everybody?
Yes, sir. Do we want to try 9 in the morning instead of 9:30?
Can do, yeah, I don't care.
Wayne,
Yes.
Is that was right? So
you want to try 9 instead of 9:30 or,
That's fine.
okay,
His first point of business is the Cook Estate update.
yeah, I'm just gonna promote it.
Interesting.
All right, so everybody should be.
Yeah.
promoted.
And Tom, I see you. Do you want to give us a quick update of what's happening?
Okay, good morning, everyone. So a brief update. I don't know if we have Paul Davis on to give a construction update, but if not, I can try to handle that. There's been a minor amount of work done relative to seeding and grooming some of the dirt areas that were uncovered up here. There was some work being done yesterday that appears to be complete. I think we're still waiting on the pump. The last update that I had on that was a couple of weeks ago, where the pump was expected sometime in November. Paul at that time was going to have some, either himself or people from his office trying to call to see if there was any way to expedite the delivery of the pump so we could have it sooner. I think the generator is set and the pump has been received for the Hagees connection when that's ready to be complete. I mentioned last time that the easement was close to being executed. For some reason, we passed that on to one of the attorneys. He thought that we needed fresh signatures, as he described that. That will have to be notarized. It has to be signed by me as president and our treasurer. We do have a couple of notaries up here at Cook Estate, so we're going to try to get that done today. I think I can do it, mine today, and Steve Sullivan, he had some issues to take care of medically with a family member, so he won't be able to do that until tomorrow or Thursday. So once that's notarized, we will provide that. The last item was the extension / payment agreement. We did provide a red line version of that. I think it was sent out a week ago. This past Friday, so almost 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half. We have not heard back or had any contact regarding that draft that was sent back. So I assume folks are still working on that, and we'll expect that at some point.
I can give you an update on that. I guess you guys had sent it to Sharon. She was on the call this morning. She's dropped off. I just received the red line from you today. She sent it off this morning, and she also sent along her revised version of our contract that we'll be sending to you based on what we discussed at our last meeting. So she has redlined our original to you, to the things that we agreed to in the meeting. So we'll be getting that to you shortly.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. I don't know that we agreed to anything specifically at the last meeting, but you did note that there were certain things that you wanted to get back in there. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at that, review that with our advisors.
Okay, yeah, we did come to an agreement on several things, and you know, specifically, instead of requiring a $20,000 deposit, we agreed that we would use the $27,000 application fee.
Okay,
Draw down on that, and we agreed to take some of the commercial language out about you know, grease traps that didn't apply to your property. But for the
Okay.
most part, those are the only things we're going to be taking out. We have not heard from you on any warranty. So the provision for the bond is still in there, as we have not seen any warranty language at all from
Okay.
you. So everything else is going to stay in there. I mean, you took out the indemnity clause as well, indemnification, so that's staying in there based on what's required for the town. So you know, it'll be our revised to take those pieces out.
Okay, we'll take a look at it.
Okay.
If we have questions or concerns from an engineering or a construction standpoint, who will be the principal contact that we'll go back to on those?
Well, if you have questions specific to the sewer line itself and hookup, that would be Dan Coughlin.
Okay,
If you could copy Lisa on that as well, please. And
okay,
Brian Joyce.
Yeah, Sharon is back on. I don't know when you jumped in, Sharon, but I mentioned that we did receive their red line copy that you had sent over this morning, and that you had also revised our original agreement. And our original agreement is what will be going back to them with the revisions in it, to where we agreed to take out the $20,000 deposit and utilize the $27,000 application fee. We're going to take the language out that had anything to do with any commercial sewer hookup. And as this is residential, of course, and the indemnification clause is back in there, and paragraph 5 is back in there, and we did not see a warranty from the contractor, so the provision for the bond would still be in place.
Okay.
Okay.
is there something in there that we were to install a flow meter? Has that been put back in?
I have to check with Dan, because Dan had reviewed the text specific to the line and submitted that to us. And I don't know if Sharon has an opportunity to review that against the language that was there. So Dan, you can help us out?
Yeah, I think that was proposed to be deleted. That wasn't
Okay.
part of the original submission. And, you know, where you're billing based upon water consumption for each one of those units, really wasn't needed. Most of the system up there is going to be low pressure sewer.
Right, okay, so yeah, when we all have separate meters on our homes up here, so I think, okay, so that's out,
That was my recommendation. I haven't seen the
Okay.
red one.
okay. All right, we'll take, as I said, we'll take a look at it. If we have specific questions related to engineering or construction, we'll come back to Dan and we'll copy Brian and Lisa on those specific questions. We do have a copy of the guarantee, so we'll forward that. I'll forward that to Lisa. And we'll get on this as soon as we receive it back.
Okay, sounds good.
Tom, did not Paul Davis already provide us with that warranty?
He did. He just gave it to, we just got it the other day.
So the town doesn't have it, or,
Not yet.
okay.
You know. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's it.
Paul Davis just popped on.
Paul, it's Tom. Do you want, I just gave a brief update and mentioned that the pump is on order, expected receipt in November. I don't know if that's changed or if you'd like to update anything further.
Sure, no, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm driving in a truck. Yeah, they're not, the pump, Brian Hagee's pump is in, but the duplex isn't due until November 3rd.
Okay. Paul, you still there?
I am, can you hear me?
Okay.
Sorry.
Paul, I just have a question about the bond that you currently have in place, and I know John Halloran is on. When you submitted the construction bond in place, it just described 4 lots and pump system, so it wasn't specific to the Deer Hill School property or Hagee property. It just said 4 lots. Is that standard? Does that cover the school and the Hagee property as well? John, I don't know if you can chime in on that or not. And it was for, I think, 260,000.
Sorry, that question for me?
Yes, or Paul Davis. I know that he had submitted I know you're in charge of getting the bonds in place when construction starts, and you had mentioned that the bond usually covers the value of the construction.
Yes, they did put the bond in place. We have a
But
copy of it.
to be honest, when John called for it, I got to replace the pumps. It should say.
Yeah, so the bond wasn't specific to the sewer line. It was just 4 pumps and on site on 4 lots, but so it wasn't specific to Deer Hill, Hagee, or the whole sewer connection line. So I was just wondering if that's needs to be on that bond or not. That's all.
Okay, I can look into that and have them change the language, but it was half the amount of work to do the project, which was, conservative because we expected the school portion to be less. So, I mean, I ordered it specifically for the Deer Hill School, but if the language isn't right, I can certainly get that changed.
It's up to John Halloran if he's satisfied with it or not.
I was satisfied with it. I think we filed it. It encompasses the whole project, and hopefully it'll be, done with it very soon. So that will take care of the construction part of it.
Yeah, so he said it wasn't for the whole project, it was just the Deer Hill part of it.
Yeah, well, I'd be a completion of the whole project. So I think that the other end is going to be in their best interest to complete it. And
Okay.
at least the town interest has been met where it runs over their property.
Okay,
Thank you, Paul.
thank you.
All right, sorry, was that it?
Yeah, that's it. John's satisfied with the way it is now, so.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I don't know if you have any other questions on the project. Right now, it's a little bit obviously delayed because of the pumps. But the next step will be to start working on the generators and the power.
Okay, do we have anything else on this?
I think that's it.
All right. Shall we go to CJC and the TV inspection?
Okay. We're all set with Cook. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just received the CCTV file transfer last night. So we haven't really gone through it as of yet, but I did look at a little piece of the video and the quality was marginal. You move very fast through the pipe. It wasn't focused in some cases. Could have just been the one clip I looked at, but we'll be going through that in the next couple of days. So I would suspect it will confirm that the condition is fine, but they already did the manual test, so the roundness should be okay. and we'll just confirm the rest of the construction.
So at our last meeting, we stated there were some tests that they were going to do. And then Dan, your guys would be on site to confirm those tests pass, and then he would be able to go to the next step to get a permit or whatever he needs to do to turn on the water pressure in the building to test whatever he needed to test. Are we close on any of that?
Yeah, most of the testing came, some of the manholes were repaired and retested and they passed. The only things that really are pending now, they're working on the pumping station at this point in time. They did try to do a hydrostatic test on the oil water separator and septic, the pump chamber. Those both went down considerably. I believe they pumped those down, cleaned the tanks, and they were repodging and sealing some of the pipe connections. And that's still subject to a retest. And then the final element would be basically a startup that make sure that the flow meter is working properly, the alarms are working properly, and the pumps are working properly.
And Dan, for 380, Chief Justice, I saw that there was a couple of significant excavations by the restaurant up there. Are they replacing the grease traps, or what are they doing in there? Do you know?
Maybe we should have either the construction manager at the site or Mark speak to that.
I think that's out of their hands, though, isn't it? Vertex isn't that side. I thought that was being done.
Well, they're construction managers on site. The excavations on the other side. We haven't been informed of any tank testing. I was assuming they were probably prepping to do some pipe rerouting and demo, but.
Well, it looks like they were installing some 2-inch pipe, but if you went up there, there's the work between the entrance of the plaza and the 380 building is just, completely, cleaned off of pavement and everything like that. And there's, significant piles of stuff, and it looked like they were.
Yes, Burrito did basically put in some of the force main. That was probably about 2 weeks ago. Maybe that's what you're referring to. So some of the force main from 380 was installed.
Mark, can you speak to any of that from your perspective?
Sure. So the work is underway. Let me ask, first of all, let me just start off with the plan set that was delivered to the commission on August 9th. Have those plans been approved by the commission?
They have not been yet. We're still compiling them for the board. But they should be, it probably should be this week. There was one issue that came up though, and that was regarding the elevator sump. And we can have a discussion after, but if you could just give us an update on the construction on 380, I guess, is what Wayne's question was.
Sure. I believe I can. Brad Picard and George Morgan is on the line too here. But you're right. The force main from 380 connecting up to sewer main number 2 was installed or beginning to be installed. The pump chambers are being installed. So work is progressing for building 380, 400, and building 400 in 390. So work is underway on the site.
Do we know when the retest of the 2 tanks for 390 will occur?
Perhaps George can answer that question. I don't have an exact date.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, George.
Okay, so I think the oil water separator is now holding nice and steady for 3 days. The pump chamber, we did a couple of, we pumped it, or we repaired a couple of potential areas for leakage. It had a very slow drop in level. So we have done that today, and we'll probably refill it tomorrow. And I don't know where Jake may be, Dan, but provided, I think maybe what we'll do is let it go for a day or so, make sure that it's not moving, and then call you to, we can start the time clock on a test.
Yeah, it's probably best to fill it and just top it off and keep it at a level so it saturates in the tank.
Yep. That's what our plan is.
So for the offsite work, we're in the process of packaging up a final submittal package to the commission containing the video results, the testing with the mandrel, the compaction testing, the pressure testing, the asphalt drawings, and related required documents for the commission's review. So this, the offsite gravity line can be turned over to the town. We understand that the contractor will return to do the final paving, actually patch for this year, final paving, which is scheduled for later on this month. I believe the final patch is scheduled for this month, and the final paving, we're still trying to determine when that's going to happen. There is a settlement period of time that's required by the DEP. I'm sorry, MassDOT. So we have to meet that condition too. But there's no reason for the sewer main work. It's not going to change, so that can be looked at and accepted by the town. And we will fulfill our requirements, our required requirements for MassDOT and also Conservation Commission.
So you're going to submit all the finals for the offsite next week?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, that's the idea. We have one sewer manhole to do retest number 10 for a pressure test that needs to be retested.
Mark, that was tested yesterday and passed.
I passed. Okay, so we just need to have that document included in our turnover package or a request for an acceptance. From the
Okay,
commission.
so on Friday, you sent plans to Dan that he needs to review and we need to approve. That's for the on-site. Is that correct, right?
No, the on-site work was provided back in August 9th. That design set.
Oh, August 9th, I'm sorry. Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
The videos of the CCTV camera work for the offsite work was provided to Mr. Coughlin in the last couple of days.
Okay.
Yeah, last night.
So, and we'll provide a whole package with the CCTV work, with the compaction tests, with the testing of the manholes, with the pressure testing. And I believe Mr. Coughlin's team member, Jake, was out on site to witness that work.
Yeah, I think just from the perspective too, for the as-builts, once they're accepted and everything, I believe engineering department will want them in CAD as well.
Sure. We can do that.
So Dan, what do we need to do on the plans that he submitted on August 9th? Do you just have to find a review of those or?
Yeah, I had Jake go through them relative to our comments. We had the 17 pages of comments originally, and then we had our meeting, I think it was mid-June, with Wayne and myself and a group from Don's group. And basically we went through a lot of those and came to general agreements on everything. We're just going through that now to just finalize all our remaining comments. Nothing really significant at this point in time. There's been changes with the pumps and the electrical components based upon our comments. So we're just going through that as well. The only other thing I think that was pending was what I had mentioned earlier regarding the elevator sump. And that's still, I guess, a point of issue. John Halen, I think in consultation with Brian, had put together a memo back in February of this year that we didn't know about. Basically that dictated what they need to do for the sump pump in the elevator pit. And that was being directed for that memo to basically a tight tank. and not to the sewer system. At the meeting we had, Wayne and myself with the Stasco group, you know, they brought that up again, but didn't bring up the memo portion, so I didn't know anything was existing prior. But that was, they asked if that could be discharged into the sewer system. And from our perspective, or my perspective, I should say, elevator sump is basically a water type system. It's supposed to be that. So the sump is only there during, if there's a major water break or fire flow condition where water gets, you know, discharged into this low point in the building. And basically the sump pump would discharge that flow out to maintain the elevator operation. So it's something that really shouldn't be operating very much, you know, if at all. And from my perspective, so long as that was going to an oil water separator and then into the system, I didn't think there was any flow impacts. We basically prohibit sump pumps from being discharged into the sewer system, but those are primarily for groundwater remediation type of efforts or surface water efforts. You know, where we can get high flows during wet weather events or seasonal events. This is not the same thing. It's basically just a safety sump pump. So it's in the sump. So I did send back a response when John sent me that memo. Basically, this is something that the building department had previously required, and I think we're still in general discussions regarding it, but I'm not. I haven't heard back from John as of yet.
So what's the decision has to be made? It either pumps into the sewer or it doesn't?
Correct. And what methods or mechanisms it needs to go through first. At this point in time, it has been actually constructed with the oil water separator going into the pump station. You know, John, in a more recent memo, John had indicated that there would be an alarm on the sump pump. That's probably still a good idea as well, so we know that if it is activated or not. But we, like I said, we did not know the original requirements established by the.
So John, if you can help us out with this particular issue.
Yes, I think I'll probably refer to Dan on that. If you guys are comfortable with, you know, discharging the water into the septic system, I would be fine with that, with the oil separator in place. And I still think the alarm might be a good idea. I don't think there was a, or I don't have any records of an inspection as to the pump well construction. So, you know, I would hope that we don't have any groundwater getting in there, but that would be my only other concern. Other than that, you know, if you guys are comfortable having it go into the sewer, then I just think you need to give the permission for that to happen.
Yeah, one thing that, you know, John brings up a point. We haven't done any internal inspections of the elevator sump as well. In fact, I don't think we have a current plumbing plan, and I don't know if one's been actually put together or it's just kind of by the trades. It would be good to get a plumbing plan just to know what is being connected in the new building to the system, or how it's being piped. And I don't know if you have that available, but Don, if that's something you do have, maybe we can get a copy.
Dan, there's a full set of MEPs on file. Plumbing, fire protection, HVAC, electrical. With the building department.
Nothing's with the permit application. So I don't know, you know, if it never got attached to the permit application. So I don't know if it was sent in email form or anything, but I don't have access to any of that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I just don't, it's not attached to the permit application, so I can't reference it like the building plans. So that's,
Maybe they just can be resent to the building department with the sewer commission.
I can do that as we speak.
Okay, great.
John, I'll send them to you.
all right. And I'll attach them to the permit application, so that way they're in the system.
All right.
Okay.
So Dan, I guess the decision now is just to have the sump pump go through a grease trap and then into the sewer or into
Yeah,
some.
it's not a grease trap, it's oil water separator.
Okay,
And oil water separator is one of the elements that was being hydrostatically tested.
Okay,
It has been repaired, so we'll have those hydrostatic tests for the oil water separator and the pump chamber. And that should actually complete that portion of the installation. As I mentioned, John indicated in his last memo that there should be an alarm on the sump pump. And that's a good idea, just to know when it's activated, because obviously if it's watertight in there, it really shouldn't be activated with any frequency. So it'd be good to get a copy or have that implemented. And I'm not sure what end, George, I don't know if you had that up as well, but or if that's already being installed.
Nope. Had not planned to do that.
And Paul, if I might jump in on that particular issue. The agreement that was signed with the sewer commission required us to follow the regulations of the sewer commission. The regulations of the sewer commission, as I reviewed them for this particular issue, make no reference to anything having to do with elevator oils. But certainly there's language in the regulations that indicate that you can't put oils into the sewer system. And that's not what we're proposing to do. We're proposing, or we have installed an oil water separator such that what gets discharged into the sewer system is water without oils. And that's, I think Mr. Hallen had just indicated that he would be comfortable with that. And that's what we're asking you to permit, which is consistent with your regulations.
Right. I mean, the sewer commission deals with 10 feet outside the building envelope primarily. So the building department has full domain within the building and what they require. I'm not sure how that requirement on the alarm was, but I believe that was transferred to the CJC group and was a requirement. Obviously, if it's inside the building, John would have domain in that. If he's requiring the alarm, I'm assuming it should be put in.
so I think we're in agreement here, Jeff. Since you stated you're already putting the oil water separator on and plan to pump clean water into this sewer.
Yeah, and of course, again, that's only in the event of an emergency. And in this particular scenario, the only emergency that we can expect is if the sprinkler system were activated and water made its way into the elevator well, at which point then the pump would be activated. So it's not something that we're even proposing to do on a continual basis, really. And again, the regulation does not require a tight tank anywhere, at least from what I can see. I could be wrong about that, but I did review the regulation in that regard.
Yeah, I think John indicated he would go along with the sewer commission's recommendations here, which we've already gone through at the June meeting. But there's still the alarm function that John had required inside the building on the sump pump activation. And it's up to John, but I think it's a good idea just to have that in place. Obviously, if the sump pump's going on numerous times, it shouldn't be, and something needs to be rectified. So having an alarm when it discharges is probably a good idea. How that's implemented is up to you and John to iron out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thought I would have to that is if the sprinkler systems are activated, the fire alarms will be activated, and then we'll know. But I understand that your comment, Dan. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I think it's more of a concern that all of a sudden that foundation area cracks or water's getting in there, groundwater. We do have high groundwater at the site. So I think that's really the primary concern too, is, obviously alarms will go off if the sprinklers go off, but if the sump pump's going off because of groundwater conditions, it needs to be remedied.
Now, it's probably true if something happened there, you'd have to call the elevator company to be able to get access to underneath the elevator car, right?
Yes.
So maybe putting a little camera down there where the sump pump is might give you a quicker response as to what's happening if the sump pump goes off.
Then you have to monitor it. You don't know really what's going on. I think a simple on-off alarm might be a good indicator. should be simple to implement too.
But I mean, just for practicality.
We'd be perfectly fine with dedicating a camera down there. That's
It wouldn't have to be monitored unless the alarm went off.
right.
But if
So you're saying in addition to the alarm?
yes, because the alarm would trigger it. I mean,
George, did I misspeak?
Let me just chime in here for a second. So if you're looking for notification if the sump pump has been activated.
Yeah.
Let me just check with the electrician and see if we can't, in the circuitry, put in an alarm device that indicates that the sump pump has actually triggered.
Yeah.
I'll check into that today.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it as simple as a counter as well, but obviously that would need to be read. But alarm should be able to put in.
Well, there's a number of different ways of doing it. I mean, you can get in the elevator code, actually does not allow you to use an oil minder pump, which has an indicator on it. Because they make no reference to having to even put in an alarm. But let me check into this and I'll get back to you.
Great.
So our outstanding items, just to quantify them, is this question regarding an alarm on the elevator circuitry. And then we've just sent along the plumbing plan for you. And then what are the outstanding items? Is there any manhole work to be done? We have to do the hydrostatic test again, which will be completed. Anything else in order to connect and flip the switch, Dan, for 390?
Well, like I said, the two tanks need to be retested. You're finishing up some pump station and flow meter work, I believe, on that installation as well. We're going to need basically a startup for that pump station to demonstrate that it is fully functional, the alarms go off, flow meter is reading accurately, that type of thing. So everything mechanically and electrically has to be in place before we do that.
Yeah, and I will have, as soon as we get positive test on both chambers, I will have Williamson come down and we'll do a startup as you suggested. We talked about that last week, I believe.
right.
Yeah, our goal with this, obviously we're trying as best we can to comply, but we have folks that need to move into the building, and certainly Mr. Hallen has jurisdiction over the certificate of occupancy, but we're just trying to get our affordable units fulfilled as quickly as we can and allow some people to move in on the second and third floors. So
Yeah, I mean, after the startup, the only other thing I think that would be pending if everything else passes would just be to make sure the system was cleaned, obviously. I know the portion on the Route 3A was all cleaned and flush. I'm pretty sure most of the system on site was cleaned and flushed, but we want to make sure about that in terms of the force main. And then the other thing would be there will be some quarterly reporting that would need to be done once that system is activated, and it would just be we'd need to this is a special instance in the terms of the sewer commission, so we'd have to put together some reporting forms for filling out and returning.
thank you.
Anything else on this? No? Okay, why don't we go to 1 Pleasant Street?
Sure. Thank you. Jeff DeLisi. I represent the owners of 1 Pleasant Street. I owe you guys some building plans so that you could confirm calculations, and they did come in my inbox and I had neglected to send them to you. I wanted to kind of look at them and summarize them myself in a cover letter, and that should be forthcoming. the only issue that was kind of sticking in my mind as to how to figure out the calculation was restaurant use is based upon not square footage, but on seats. And that's all driven by the tenant. And so we don't yet know the proposed restaurant size on the first floor. It shows on the building, when you receive the building permit plans, you're going to see it showing as retail space, but that's going to be obviously incorrect. And I'll point that out in my letter. Other than that, the second and third floors with respect to the number of bedrooms for the residential units are, 100% accurate. And that's about it. So I'll try and get something to you. I do very much appreciate the fact that the commission has put this on today's agenda to move it along. Thank you very much. And I'll be diligent in the next week or so in getting something to you.
Are you going to give an estimate for the restaurant space? Do you think? Is it 500?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that there is a range that is being discussed with the proposed tenant, and I think that's a great idea. I will do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other addresses assigned to this property besides One Pleasant?
Any addresses?
Any other addresses besides One Pleasant?
No, it's One Pleasant, and then there would be various units within it.
Okay.
Yep. And as I indicated previously, there's already, sewer, or there, the pre-existing building was already sewered, and the betterment had already been paid off, and it had been used as a mix of retail, office, and restaurant. And that's not changing. What might change is the allocation of that.
Yeah.
But
I'm not-
that's
Yeah,
pretty
I
much-
mean, I looked back at the old betterment list, and the optical place was only listed with a 2 EDU.
yeah. I mean,
Um,
I would think that's probably consistent anywhere in Cohasset. These matters weren't closely followed, and it's kind of an old. It's been hooked up for some time.
Right, all I'm saying is, I'm not sure if there was a change in use permit ever issued when, the restaurant space or something else went in there. That's something that would have to be researched, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm virtually certain that as new tenants were occupying that building, there was probably no reuse certification or anything like that. There probably were building permits for build outs, and certificates of occupancy issued for those, but as far as, a review of a change in use that would trigger a change in the betterment or something like that, that would all have been done in connection with a building permit application. And then it would be internal at town hall from there, I guess.
Yeah, it's, I think, if, I'm sure Lisa's still there, she may want to take a look at the files to see if we have any other
Yeah,
information.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's what you're gonna discover.
Yeah, I didn't see anything in the file to indicate how many EDUs there were. Just that there was a sewer connection.
It would probably be a change in use application if it was filed. John, I'm not sure what you have.
I'm not really certain it matters at this juncture, because we are now, which is what I tell my family all the time. And essentially, the letter that I'm going to be sending you not only is going to account for the residential use, but will attempt to account for the commercial retail office uses as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna try as best we can, and I think as new tenants come in, and if the town is diligent on reviews of use, at that time you
Yeah.
probably could change things. So, all right, thank you.
The only piece of business that I have that's not listed here is I had a Zoom call last night with the Long Range Finance Committee. Interesting. They're going after all sorts of stuff. Sewer is one of them as to what we're doing. I have shared with them the Woodard and Curran plan, the original one for the regional sewer, and also with our capital plan They had no real comments to all of that. I think they're just right now doing fact finding for all the different departments and where they're going, but I believe tonight I'm being sworn in. I am going to act, I'm not going to be able to make every one of these meetings due to upcoming travel, so I may tab Wayne or Paul to step in for me. We really don't have a lot because we've got, we do our own thing and we don't, we eat what we kill. And we're not like going to the town to get funding. So, but I think they just want to know what we're doing and how we're doing it. So that is me. Anyone else have any comments? Wayne or Paul? No?
No, I don't think so. I know, I did get an email, about my request on, the pollution claims, of the harbor and the Gulf River. Yeah, so I've reviewed some of those, and there was a subject matter expert that was recommended that I talk to, so I'm going to reach out to them to just kind of review it, because the claim that the Gulf River was the level of pollution that was causing the harbor issues, which was causing the beaches to be closed, claimed by one of the select board members. I was able to start to track down some of the data that would help us understand if putting sewer completely around the Gulf is going to solve that problem, as everyone claimed.
Well, it's not going to solve the problem, but it'll reduce it, because clearly there are pollutants that are coming, out of the back roads of Cohasset from Beechwood Street way down to North Situate, going into North Situate. And if you check that water there, which I think they probably have, you're going to see pollutants in it, because it's going to pick up, oil and stuff like that from the surface of Route 3A, which it drains, and those things. So doing all is only a portion of what pollutants are that can get into.
Yeah, I think that's part of that study, because what we want to understand is, what the baseline is, because you're right, there's always going to be contaminants. The question is, what's the acceptable level versus the alert level, so if we're climbing to an alert level consistently, then we know there's some systemic issue that's causing it. But if we're below alert limits consistently, then we know we're helping to solve some of those issues to keep it from rising to a level where they would cause some sort of a reaction by the Board of Health or anybody else.
All I know is that, and I did it a couple of weeks ago after a rain. I was down at the Border Street Bridge fishing. I wouldn't need anything coming out of there. And all you have to do is look at any of the boats that are moored in the harbor, and out that they came from the factory with the brown stain all over them. And you go down to the yacht club after a major rainstorm, and the slips and the docks capture all this stuff.
Yeah,
it's a pretty simple scientific investigation.
Yeah, they sent some reports that that show that that there's a heightened awareness of the issue. It's not at the alert limit level. It was though it was consistently heading in that direction. So a lot of people monitor for trends, and if the trend's going in the wrong direction, then you have an opportunity to respond before any alert levels are reached. So that's what we'd like to find out is where we are with that baseline, so that we can understand how to respond better.
Yep.
There is one more thing too I wanted to bring up too, is the barn doors. Are we at this point ready to move forward with that one? I believe the quote was 22.4.
So we did, didn't we? Yeah, I thought we did.
Yeah, we did approve it. I just wanted you to double check on the erudite, but since they can't erudite because they're too big, that what your email this morning was fine. As long as
Okay.
yes, they're in the business to know how to keep it from corroding over time.
And then there was one more quote too, I think Scott had forwarded, and that was on the grit screw. I think the dollar amount that was close to 64,000 to get the grit screw replaced.
Did it?
I don't know if anybody saw that, but
Oh,
there's about 40,000 for the screw itself from Lakeside and additional for crane and mechanical labor to put it in. So it was about 64,000. So I'm not sure if you have money for that at this point in time or how that would be run in terms of implementation.
We budgeted for that, I know. I just don't, does that, excuse me, does that quotation include them taking the old one away?
The old grit screw?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the screw itself. Yes.
yeah,
So
now
it's
it's been done?
to repair. I'm sorry?
Dan, hasn't it already been done?
No, not the grit screw.
I thought last time he talked, he said, and the grit screws all set up and everybody was happy.
No, I think you're talking about the sieve drum thickener, the sludge thickener.
Okay,
The grit screw is basically in the Lakeside unit.
Yeah, on the last one thing.
And we haven't been removing grit for some time. So. Anyway, something for probably the next agenda to discuss more. Maybe we can have Scott here as well.
okay.
Yeah.
I just
you wanna do that?
talked about that for years also, so I
Look at this.
Right.
do it.
Okay.
Sorry, you are right. Because we were talking about the percentage of stuff like that. But the grit screw seems like it's been coming up.
I think it's because the funds were probably, I think were approved a year or a year and a half ago.
If not more.
Yeah,
Right. It's been down probably for close to 3 years now, or 2.5 at least.
Yeah.
And I think Scott was having some problems getting a quote. I recontacted DNC and they basically put this new quote together. So we just want to proceed, I think.
Good.
Right now, I think all that glitch is going in the aeration chambers. So at some point in time, we're probably gonna have to clean out those basins.
Anything else, guys? I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting. If there's no other.
Second,
All right, now let's do a roll call. Bill McGowan, aye.
Paul Kearsarge.
Wayne Zawchuk,
All right, thank you, everybody. Sorry again about the start.
okay.
All right, see you on the 27th.
Okay.
Bye.
If not sooner.
Yeah.